And that very cleverly brings us to the next part of personality, which is the anima in a man and the animus in a woman. We'll work with the anima tonight, and it's the Latin word for soul. And right. Jung places a woman in that category. In a man, it stands behind the shadow to be the first figure of the collective unconscious, which we won't get into tonight, but in a later episode. The anima is the female nature of a man, standing on one chromosome.
I think Jung was the first one to say that, too, by the way. Jung was the first one to talk about something feminine in men.
That's right.
And something masculine in women. I mean, that was a very unheard of concept. Nowadays, I think we talk about it a lot.
And we were just discussing during the break that we took, you guys don't know about that, I have a very different time frame for being an adolescent growing into young adulthood. And we were discussing who would be an anima figure now. And our camera person back here said, let me hear it again.
Demi Moore.
Demi Moore.
Demi Moore?
Okay. That's a good anima figure. For the mid-90s.
Anima is one of those concepts, I think, when you first come across it in Jung, either you've had an experience and you get it the first time he talks about it, or if you haven't quite had that experience, then it's a complete mystery to you. You know, right. You have no idea what's being talked about. So that, you know, later in life when I came and read Jung talking about the anima as being the siren, the call that comes to a man, I knew exactly what he was talking about because I can still hear her singing.
That's right. That's right. And in the 1950s, we had various anima figures to choose from. There was Marilyn Monroe, Jane Russell, Doris Day, who was too goody two-shoes for my taste, always. And in my own particular case, I projected my female nature, my anima, onto Grace Kelly, who was a 1950s movie star at the time. And she means a great deal to me. She's embodied my anima throughout my life. I'm still interested and more or less fascinated by the history of Monaco and all that sort of thing. But in opposition to Marilyn Monroe, Jane Russell, and the other actresses who portrayed kind of a teasing sexuality, in her roles for Hitchcock, Grace Kelly portrayed the open, available, sexually available woman, particularly in Rear Window, where she brought the overnight case with her lingerie in it. It was obvious she was going to stay and have a nice time with Jimmy Stewart. And in To Catch a Thief, she played Tracy Stevens. And this is my real anima figure, is the woman who was the character in the film To Catch a Thief. And she was very sexually open. She has a scene with Cary Grant where she's teasing him with a necklace that's around her neck, and Hitchcock has the scene lighted so that you can't tell whether she's talking about the necklace or about her breasts, which are lighted in this sort of bright light. And she's holding the necklace out to Cary Grant, who's portraying a jewel thief, and saying, "Take it, don't you want it? This is what you came for." And finally, Cary Grant, she takes Cary Grant's hands and kisses all the fingers and puts the hand under the necklace and says to him, "Take it." And he says to her, "You know very well that this necklace is imitation." And she says, "Well, I'm not," and she kisses him. And then Hitchcock gets this burst of fireworks off in the background out through French windows. And
and that's about as racy as it gets for the 50s,
for the
right?
50s, right? Yeah. Exactly.
And it was racy.
But it took reading her biographies and other authors to make me realize that she did indeed portray the sexually open, available woman, which is a counter to the grain of my own experience, the good Catholic girl, and or the other options that we had.
Right. So you see how personal that is to your own experience?
Absolutely.
I mean, you can't predict beforehand. People People always wonder about why they're attracted to the kinds of people that they're attracted to.
Right.
You know, that's a common question that people have, and I think part of the idea is that it's kind of a psychological chemistry. We all have a jigsaw kind of a pattern. That's our psyche, that's all around us, and we bump into other people and their jigsaw patterns, and every now and then we bump into someone and our different holes and things all fit together. And we know it instantly. I mean, that's love at first sight.
Right.
You know, that's when two people's psychological makeup locks together in less than a second. And so that's a part of depth psychology. I mean, that's a part of the inner world of those two people and their history, their personal history, what they've lived and what they've been through, linking up together even though they don't know a thing about each other. You see that? And that's
right.
That's back to the projection.
And that projection kind of thing, even Jung talks about as being, you marry, you have children, you have your family, you do this, and then things start going wrong. And the reason things start going wrong is because you start withdrawing your projections on the other party.
Well, projection works best on an empty screen, right?
Yes.
Like in the movies.
That's right.
The screen is empty, and you know, that's what falling in love is all about. I mean, the screen is empty. You don't know the person. It's just a wide open area for all of this stuff to come pouring out of you, and that's kind of the positive aspect of it. All of the stuff that comes pouring out of you onto the screen, so to speak.
Yes, that's very important.
But then when you've lived with that screen for 5 years, in other words, you start to know there's a person under there. I mean, that came because it was the anima that I was relating to, not the person. And I think that's part of maturity in a relationship, that as the projection wears off, then there's a whole other interesting problem that emerges, and who is this person now that I'm with? And in the long run, that person is probably more fascinating than your own projections, and then in some cases not at all. So the anima is like a smoke, and that's an image, you know.
It's a good image,
dreams, yes. Sometimes, anytime you have smoky things, foggy things, white kind of things, there's a haze, you know, and there's a glaze that comes over a man's eyes. That's when you know that you're in this anima mediating territory. Everything is not quite what it seems.